All right, man, peace. So, brother, this is going to be volume 2 of the series, The Pro-Black Mafia Declares War on Stephen A. Smith. And this edition is going to be featuring Mr. Terrell Owens, the former superstar wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, the Buffalo Bills, the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not quite sure if I'm forgetting any other team, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because we're going to be focusing on many of the diatribes and the insults that Terrell Owens levies at Mr. Stephen A. Smith, who decided that he was going to take the high road over the course of this conversation. One thing that we have to understand is that you cannot always take the high road. Sometimes you need to, but you should not always take the high road. When you read the scriptures, it tells us, do not answer a fool according to his folly. But then the very next verse tells us, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceits. Meaning what? Sometimes when you ignore the idiocy of someone, or you decide to take the high road, that empowers them to take their ignorance and their buffoonery to others and claim that they were able to execute a victory over you. That could alter the perception of your message, and you don't really want to do that too often, because other people who are highly impressionable are going to listen to a person who you've taken the high road against, and they may associate your quiet response with a victory for that ignorant person. So once again, sometimes you do have to answer a fool according to their folly, and I believe that Stephen A. Smith should have gone down that same pathway that Terrell Owens was trying to take him, especially when he had the nerve to say that Max Kellerman is quote-unquote blacker than him. There are not many insults that a so-called black man can receive, especially on national television, from another so-called black man than something like that along those lines. Terrell Owens basically got on TV and called Stephen A. Smith a quote-unquote sellout or a coon. But as I've addressed in the series that I have both on YouTube and on Patreon, who are the real coons? The liberal Negro loves to attack other so-called black people just for disagreeing with them. Why is that? Because liberal blacks, for the most part, are unable to qualify or quantify their arguments, their assertions, or their beliefs. They just want you to go along with or co-sign their nonsense because they lead with their emotions. It's very obvious to me that Terrell Owens is trying to make his mark in the woke media world, especially on the internet. He's trying to court a far bigger audience for himself by taking on Stephen A. Smith. That's why he messaged him the previous day and was trying to levy certain attacks and diatribes against him via the text message, because he knew that that would prompt Stephen A. Smith to invite him on the show, which of course would gain greater notoriety for him. But if you have to go down that path and take that low an option for yourself when you're interacting with someone like Stephen A. Smith on national TV, what does that really say about you? And in regards to Stephen A. Smith, that is why you have to be very hesitant to assist a woke Negro. Terrell Owens has a very long rap sheet when it comes to his interactions with people, even with black teammates like Donovan McNabb, who he threw under the bus. So it's interesting to me that he decided that he was going to get on TV and levy such an accusation against Stephen A. Smith, such an insult that really was low class and low brow. But what do you expect from a quote unquote wokey woke Negro? They're going to say and do whatever they can to get as much attention as they can, even though they never have an end game. They never have an end game whatsoever. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
When I sit up there, and I sat here yesterday, and I spoke about how his points are eradicated, I'm not talking about the kneeling. I'm not talking about the protesting. I'm a black man, you idiots.
This cracks me up when Stephen A. Smith says that. You never get into a back and forth with your naysayers when you're someone like a Stephen A. Smith on television. What they're saying is not relevant. The vast majority of wokey wokes do not have the cognitive function to even understand or grasp what's going on around them on a three-dimensional level. They think and see things two-dimensionally. Everything is emotional. They never question what Colin Kaepernick's motives are. It's always so hilarious to me. People just assume that he really started to protest because he was so inflamed by quote-unquote police brutality, which is something that has been going on since we've been in this captivity. And yet Kaepernick only started doing it when he realized that he was going to lose his starting job to Blaine Gabbert. Colin Kaepernick has been in the NFL since what, 2011, 2012? And he never felt any type of impetus to speak out against racial issues or police brutality, societal justice, especially pertaining to the so-called black community, until he got with his quote-unquote girlfriend, aka his handler Ness Nitty, and he lost his starting job with the 49ers. No one questions that, though, or very few people question it. I should say the vast majority of fake pro-blackity, wokety woke Negroes, they never question that. Why is that? Because they're constantly looking for another reason to go back and forth with the target of their ardor, of their love, the so-called white man and woman. And that's the worst kept secret, but it's also the best kept secret, if that makes sense, in the interaction, the toxic rapport between liberal blacks and the Caucasians that they love so much. Is that, once again, the wokety wokes, they really just want a hug from you. They don't have a plan. They don't want to start their own organizations or businesses and try to build up the so-called black community so that we can be an autonomous entity to the best of our ability like the other strong races do. All they want to do is troll the so-called white man and woman and act as if it's a sign of strength that a man will get down on one knee like he's proposing marriage. And supposedly, supposedly that's revolutionary.
Think I have a problem with a man that is kneeling and protesting?
Actually, yes, I do. Stephen A. Smith, I think you've had a big problem with that from its inception, but you didn't want to state it outright because you were worried about how it was going to be perceived on social media. And that's been your biggest problem for a long time now. You're too worried about what the wokety wokes think about you. To hell with them. They don't matter. They don't have a plan. Once again, being woke is just a colloquialism for being super liberal. And the liberal Negro gets all of their ideologies from the liberal Caucasian. The liberal Caucasian gets their ideologies from the liberal Caucasian Jew. That's the chain of command. That is why the Kaepernick camp is working through Max Kellerman. Because they're going over Stephen A. Smith's head. He's not liberal enough. So as I've always told you, brothers, once they see a so-called black man who's not going to be, he's not going to act as a mouthpiece for their liberal philosophies, they're going to be the first ones who try to cast aspersions on his quote-unquote blackness. And Terrell Owens fell for it because he's looking for attention.
Racial oppression and police brutality? Do you know anything about my history in 25 years in this damn business? T.O. sends me a damn text just now. T.O., how many times have I come to the defense of Terrell Owens?
That was your first mistake.
Okay? How many times have I talked about how unfairly he has been maligned? How people have insulted him?
Always understand something, Stephen A. Smith. No matter how good a snake charmer you are, you're going to get bit by that cobra eventually.
Man deserved to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He did, but as we all know, Terrell Owens is not a first ballot Hall of Famer as a person.
Get your popcorn ready, everybody. Welcome back to First Take, coming to you live from the Seaport District at Pier 17, brought to you by Chase. So, we just heard Stephen A. delivering a passionate response to critics of his takes on Colin Kaepernick. One of those critics is a Hall of Famer, friend of the show, Terrell Owens, who joins us now. T.O., thanks for being with us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Morning, morning. All right.
What's up?
Hall of Famer? Thanks.
T.O., tell me this. What was your biggest issue about Stephen A.'s take that prompted you to text him and get on him about it?
His biggest issue is that he's jealous of Stephen A. Smith. He actually wants to be Stephen A. Smith. He wants to have that venue to espouse his beliefs, his observations about society, particularly about sports, and he knows that he'll never get there. So he wants to attack Stephen A. Smith, cast as much vitriol as possible Stephen A. Smith's way, so that he can build up relevance on social media. Very similar to what I stated about Shannon Sharpe when he first started to gain prominence. And people really don't understand this. This is how they amplify their profile in the media world. You either have to latch on to a famous athlete in some way, shape, or form, or you have to say as many outlandish things as possible in as outlandish a way as possible so that people say, who the hell is this person and why should I be listening to him? You're outlandish, and then after a while, when you get enough attention, people decide whether or not what you're saying is worthwhile. That's what T.O. is going for right now. He sees this Colin Kaepernick storyline, this narrative, as an opportunity to amplify his profile. Maybe if I'm woke enough, I can get more followers on Instagram. Once again, when Shannon Sharpe started working alongside Skip Bayless, he was willing to cut off his friendship with Ray Lewis. And of course, there are people in my comment section in the video that I did entitled Woke Wars, Old Shay Sharpe turns on Colin Kaepernick, something like that, in which they were saying, what are you talking about? Shannon's really for his people. He might be, But all of these guys are opportunists, and they build up their portfolio and their profile by associating themselves with the biggest name athletes that they can find. That's how Howard Cosell was able to augment his persona. He was already famous in the 1950s, but when he was able to start that dynamic with Muhammad Ali in the 60s and 70s, that's when he exploded. Of course, also with his work on Monday Night Football. Ahmad Rashad built up a very strong affinity with Michael Jordan in the early 90s, to the point where he became the only media member that Michael Jordan would confide in, even getting exclusive interviews during that time period where the media was after Jordan for the gambling. So this has always occurred, and is nothing new right now. Stephen A. Smith, he's very hesitant to say anything bad about James Harden because he's finally been able to repair that breach that they had for a long time. And he's one of the few guys, James Harden is one of the few star players in the league who will sit down with Stephen A. Shay Sharp was trying to build up his profile through Colin Kaepernick. I'm not saying that he did not agree with Kaepernick's stance. I'm sure that he did to a degree. He's a woke liberal Negro. But he also saw the opportunity to side with him and build up his fan base, his constituency, through the woke market, which is a very lucrative market. Wokeism is very lucrative in the 2010s, heading into the 2020s. Nike has bought into it, and a lot of these pundits on television have bought into it as well. You're selling idealism. You're really selling cultural Marxism. The powers that be have done me wrong. Everything is their fault. I'm a victim. I'm striving for equality through antagonizing them. That's the overall methodology. And that's right down Terrell Owens' alley, because that's always been what he's about. I'm a victim. Everybody did me wrong. I'm going to get them back. I'm going to antagonize them however I can. Stephen A. Smith is the latest target that has been placed in front of T.O.'s crosshairs. And we know the previous targets. Jeff Garcia, Steve Mariucci, Jerry Rice, Donovan McNabb, Bill Parcells, Tony Romo, Jason Witten. It's always somebody else's fault. It's never T.O.'s fault. Now all Stephen A. Smith does, in my view, is try to tell the so-called black community what they need to know as opposed to what they want to hear. And that's always going to lead to some type of backlash from the wokeities, because they're trained to always want to blame others and to always lash out and act out emotionally, as opposed to doing things strategically and having a real plan.
I think it was more just, how he pretty much attacked Colin, especially being the distinguished analyst, sports commentator that he is. Just the way that he's going about, really, I think, not really kind of doing his due diligence. And I think Max hit on a couple of things on yesterday.
Yes, bro. Do you mean Max or do you mean Massa? He said Stephen A. Smith did not do his due diligence. Stephen A. Smith had been speaking to the Colin Kaepernick camp for the last couple of months, according to him. Now, if you're one of these NFL conspiracy theorists where you're now alleging that nothing that the NFL says can be trusted, and therefore nothing that anyone states in association with the NFL can be trusted, there's nothing really that can be done with you or for you in a conversation to bring about any type of resolution to this issue. We know that T.O. has a serious axe to grind with the NFL as well, so he's been compromised. It'd be like Antonio Brown sitting here on national television and saying, I side with Colin as well. I think that you guys have tried to cast some terrible notions about his character, and we know that you guys do that. We would know that he's actually talking about himself. Terrell Owens is projecting his own issues onto Colin Kaepernick and through Colin Kaepernick.
Again, whomever his sources are from the NFL, within the NFL, who gave him information, they gave him some inaccurate information.
How would you know that? You don't know that. You're just saying whatever because you want to be as woke as possible, bruh. You're trying to be relevant in the opinion world of being a sports pundit. You don't know whether or not Stephen A. Smith has been lied to. You're just trying to be as disrespectful as possible. It's truly sad because there are a lot of things that Stephen A. Smith could have said about Terrell Owens, and in my view, probably should have said about him, just to let him know, before you start speaking in such a strident tone, we know what your history is, bruh.
And I'm talking mainly in reference to the standard waiver that they were trying to get Colin Kaepernick to sign.
Yes, the waiver, red herring. that all the wokeities are trying to hold on to for dear life. This is proof that the NFL is a modern day plantation. Look, they actually added some conditions within the waiver that told Colin Kaepernick, you're not going to be able to sue us in case you get injured in this workout. So that means the sky is falling. They basically were going to have him picking cotton in the workout had he signed the waiver, right? Give me a fucking break.
T.O., before I get into my response, first...
And let me also say this. There are people who are going to say, if I was his agent, I would never have had him sign the waiver. Well, you know what? If you were his agent, then you should have told him beforehand, why are you even trying to sign with the NFL if everything that they do, you're going to nitpick? That's the main thing that an agent should be asking their client. Maybe we should find another league for you to try to join. Let's go to the CFL. Let's go somewhere else. Colin Kaepernick's never going to go to the CFL because he's already making 7 figures annually from Nike. So he can afford to troll the NFL for perpetuity and distort the minds of highly impressionable woke Negroes on the internet who are always looking for somebody else to blame for their shortcomings.
Thanks for being on the show. Secondly, how do you know it was inaccurate?
He doesn't. He has to say that because understand something. Liberal Negroes, they always have to have something that cannot be substantiated as a jumping off point for their bullshit.
When you say I got inaccurate information, how do you know that that was inaccurate? If I got a waiver, I got a copy of Colin Kaepernick's waiver that he was presented. I got a copy of the waiver that the NFL had from 2011. I got a copy of the waiver that the NFL has in 2019. I have all 3 in my possession. What information did I have that was inaccurate?
Well, I think just the information that was inserted into the waiver that they initially, not initially, but they wanted him to sign, it was obviously different than the standard waiver. I think obviously he did a great job of having his representatives review that, and upon going into the workout, he realized that, yeah, he was going to put himself in harm's way had he signed that waiver.
Oh, absolutely. He was going to put himself in harm's way. They were going to be firing bullets at Colin Kaepernick in that workout. That's for sure. His life was in danger because he's the modern day Malcolm X. This is what happens. This is what happens to so many so-called black people today who've allowed themselves to become inflamed by the manipulation tactics of the liberal media. There's real racism that occurs in America today on a structural level. I'm talking about an infrastructural level and on a day-to-day level. And they're trying to play up shit like this, in which we're supposed to believe that multimillionaires are being oppressed by the league that made them multimillionaires. Real oppression is lack of job opportunities for so-called black men who meet educational requirements, the same educational requirements as other demographics, but who are not being hired at the same rate as those other demographics. That's real oppression. Real oppression are the exorbitant jail terms or prison terms that so-called black men receive for being found guilty of committing the same crimes as people of other races. That's real oppression. Oppression is not a Colin Kaepernick, you sued us, we settled out of court, we don't trust you, you don't trust us, but you still expect us to give you the same waiver that we give every other athlete. That's not oppression, dude. Sorry.
I think you guys discussed it. Even Max alluded to it on the show as well.
Master Kellerman.
Wrong information. So if I'm calling Kaepernick and then, obviously not allowed the adequate time to have his people review.
He did not have the adequate time to allow his people to review, but you just said that his people did a good job reviewing the waiver. How long does it take to review the waiver? I read it on Pro Football Talk. It takes approximately a minute and change to read that waiver and understand what the hell it says. Any lawyer or agent worth their salt would have been able to tell Colin Kaepernick where he should go from there after reading the waiver which the NFL sent to his team that Wednesday. They did not respond back to the NFL until 12:30 p.m. that Saturday, the day of the workout. So there was no real concern on their part in having a real workout. That's why so many of his followers, aka sycophants, aka cult members, showed up with those t-shirts on talking about I know my rights and the Your Rights camp and all that bullshit, because that was their concern, a publicity stunt. And unfortunately, I mean, this is very unfortunate. The Wokedies really only make up about 10 to 15% of the so-called black community. The vast majority of so-called black people are actually just trying to figure out what the truth is so that we can mobilize from there. It's just that the Wokedies tend to be extremely verbose, loud, and obnoxious. And as cantankerous as possible, they try to embarrass others into conforming into their low-level views of life, society, etc., which, once again, never have an end game. Terrell Owens is trying to appeal to that demographic.
Documents, and then they basically tried to dictate when and where and how, for him to do his workout.
Yeah, that's normally how that happens. And Terrell Owens, let's be for real. You also were trying to get back into the NFL just a couple of years ago, even though you're well over 40 years old. I'm sure that if they said, Terrell, we're going to have a workout for you, the NFL is going to stage a workout for you to help you get a job. Show up in this place at this time in 2 days. I promise you, you're going to say, okay, I have my plane ticket ready. Thank you, boss. So this nonsense about Colin Kaepernick being able to call shots as if he's a great quarterback. I had some dude say, Colin Kaepernick, he didn't really quit because the reason why he turned down the option is because they were going to pay him less money. Yes, that normally happens to quarterbacks who are 1-10 in their last 11 games. Then it was, but his teammates, they didn't do a good job either. Bro, I have news for you. The quarterback gets too much of the credit, and sometimes he gets too much of the blame. There's a reason why they make as much as $35 to $40 million. There's also a reason why they get cut and why their contracts get diminished, especially when you're on the downslide. Colin Kaepernick had been on the downslide for the previous 2+ seasons. So there was no way in the world that they were going to offer him the same exact money. You're either going to pick up the option or you're not. And going into next season, he was going to have to compete with Blaine Gabbert to get his starting job back. He was only a great quarterback for one season. That one season was unbelievable. Don't get it twisted. His performance against the Green Bay Packers in the 2012 playoffs is one of the great performances of all time. Or I should say the 2013 playoffs. Because I think that was the year that they went and played the Baltimore Ravens and lost with Ray Lewis. But after that, he was never the same player. He was still good the next year with the 49ers. That was the year they lost in the NFC Championship game to the Seattle Seahawks. But after that, he was done. So we're talking about 2 more years after that where he was declining. And there was innuendo coming out of the San Francisco locker room that he had some very intense issues with other teammates. He had cordoned himself off. He was not communicating with his teammates, which is terrible as a quarterback. And then all of a sudden he meets Ness Nitty, who he basically stole from Aldon Smith, his teammate. Aldon Smith is another player on that squad with psychological problems. They had a big issue, a big dust up in the locker room. Aldon Smith tried to damage Colin Kaepernick's vehicle. He's never been seen since. He's been out of the league since then. Nobody says, hey, Aldon Smith deserves a job in the NFL. He was the best pass rusher in the NFL before that issue with Kaepernick, when Kaepernick, quote unquote, took his girl, even though I think that Ness Nitty always had eyes on Kaepernick because she knows who he is. She's his handler. So she already knew that he was an asset, just like Aldon Smith has had ties to Luciferianism. So that's the person that brothers need to be focusing on, is that Ness Nitty character. Colin Kaepernick, he's just a pawn in the game.
You insert this additional language which isn't consistent with the standard waiver, then that's not right.
Well, a couple of things. Let me speak now. And Max, please forgive my indulgence. I just need to talk. I need to talk to T.O.
and you.
I need to talk to T.O. one-on-one on this one. Here's the deal, T.O. First of all, I appreciate your perspective. I get all of that, all right? And I understand. I'm not offended by anything that you say. Let me make sure I say that, number one. Number two, when we talk about the waiver, understand that I read on the air the difference between one waiver and the next. So the very thing that you're talking about that was omitted from the previous waiver that Colin Kaepernick had signed years ago, I actually read and highlighted where the difference was.
And once again, we're just talking about the workout that day. We're not talking about any contractual language that would have been stipulated had he been signed by an NFL team subsequent to the workout. So he was unwilling to even do a workout. And most of you brothers who worked in corporate America, they may tell you that one of the prerequisites for getting hired after the interview, when they look over your resume and they evaluate who you are as a person in the interview, is that you might have to take a drug test. What if you say, you know what, I like this job. You're promising that I'm going to be paid $250,000 a year. The interview went well, but I'm offended that you dare ask me to take a piss test for this job. Are you trying to say that I'm that I'm a drug user? You're not even going to ask whether or not this is something that they ask for other positions in the corporation. If you really want the job, you're just going to do what they ask you. Colin Kaepernick does not really want to work in the NFL. He needs to keep this nonsense going about how he's a martyr, because that's how he stays relevant for the simple-minded. And most people out here are simple-minded. Life is very simple. It's very easy to understand. It's not easy to live. The things that we want in life, we go for. If Colin Kaepernick truly just wanted to get his foot back into the door of the NFL, he would have signed a waiver. Cats can get upset by that if they want to. Once again, we're talking about a person who set a new precedent for suing the NFL. You have to be a damn fool to believe that they're going to give him the same contracts and waivers as they would, quote unquote, regular players. It's just not going to happen.
I don't think I was inaccurate. What I was saying was I understood exactly, and I highlighted the difference. All I was saying was that at the end of the day, Colin Kaepernick said that he wanted a workout with the NFL. The opportunity was granted to him. Was it ideal? No, but it was granted to him. Now, I want to get to a deeper subject, because this is where you and I need to have this discussion. And I think it's incredibly important. And Tamale and Max, I would say to both of y'all, I need to have this conversation right now, at least for the next couple of minutes, from one black man to another.
Do you?
Yes, I do. Here's the deal, T.O., that I want everybody to
Stephen A. did not understand Molly was trying to talk in her Ebonics lingo. She said, do you, as an affirmative. He took it like it was a question.
When it came to Colin Kaepernick, the one thing that I did not highlight is that Max might have gotten his information from the Colin Kaepernick's camp, which, Max, you did say, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The Marxist camp. So, of course, they have to work through Marx Kellerman.
T.O., they had been communicating with me for the last couple of months. I have texts that I will not divulge, and they know who it's from, where they religiously said, we want back in the NFL. We want a workout. Stephen A., can you be one of the people that help us? You know that oppression is something that he's suffering from.
No, he's not. And that's where you're culpable, Stephen A. Smith, because you fed into that victimization bullshit. That, you know, all of a sudden he's being stopped. There are these high-level forces that don't want a quote-unquote strong black man in the NFL. Colin Kaepernick was known for banging broads and having a big-ass turtle just 5 years ago. And all of a sudden this nigga's Nat Turner now. The fuck out of here.
Has been blackballed, and he fought on behalf of us. So behind the scenes, I'm fighting on behalf of Colin Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick was fighting for his opportunity to get his starting job back. I promise you that if he were the starting quarterback of the 49ers back in 2016, he would not have been getting on one knee. No way in the world.
Get him a workout, because that's what he said he wanted. Not only does he not show up, but he goes to a different location. Not only does he work out going to a different location, acting like it was impromptu, but there were people there with Colin Kaepernick shirts or wearing T-shirts that said, I know my right.
Ding.
It was in the aftermath of saying all he wanted was a workout with an NFL team so he could get back in the NFL. And at the end of the day, here's the issue, and I take no issue with UTO, and I take no issue with those who support Colin Kaepernick. Another one of these asinine reputations was, oh, they were not going to allow Colin Kaepernick to have his own wide receivers there. So let me get this straight. Colin Kaepernick has to be so pampered that he has to be allowed to bring his own wide receiver corps to a workout. So hypothetically speaking, if he were to get signed by the Cincinnati Bengals or by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, do they also have to sign those wide receivers, and they have to sit AJ Green if he goes to the Bengals or Mike Evans if he goes to the Buccaneers? Those guys can't play because they're not part of Kaepernick's crew. That's what you're telling me. My brother, I got nothing but love for you. You and I go back a long way. Right. We're good. But this is what I want to say. Two black men are up here. In your case, you're defending Colin Kaepernick now. In my case,
allegedly he's defending him. Could also be using him to amplify his own profile. Once again, that is major. I don't think that brothers quite get that. A lot of you do, of course, but a lot of the wokeities, they think that these people just get on TV and say their true feelings or speak their true mind. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they say what they need to say in order to gain popularity.
I've defended Colin Kaepernick on numerous occasions throughout the years. I'm talking about the Mike Wilbons, the James Browns, and everybody in between. Black folks all over the country, all in the media. Everybody speaking up on behalf of Colin Kaepernick. But Colin Kaepernick, you the one person that don't have anything to say.
Because he has nothing to say. He's not saying anything because he does not have anything to say. That's one of the true intelligent things that his team has done. They've helped to build the mystique around Colin Kaepernick by making him into some type of Yoda figure who's living off in a cave somewhere, meditating on what he's going to do to end police brutality. It's nothing but bullshit. He's had time to appear at functions and award galas. He was at Tyler Perry's grand opening for his studio down in Georgia, but he did not have time to have any real interviews with many of the black media members who would have loved to have spoken to him, because supposedly he's trying to make his mark as a civil rights leader, allegedly.
Step aside while brothers and sisters who know that you were right to want to address police brutality.
Right, but he doesn't really care. That man don't know shit about no damn police brutality. I promise you, over the past 7 years, the police have been a friend to Colin Kaepernick. I'm sure that various police departments have hid certain things that have been associated with him over the last 7 years, because with all the broads that he's been associated with, there have been quite a few. It would not surprise me if there have been quite a few. Let me say this, because what I'm saying is alleged. But it would not surprise me if there have been quite a few broads who may have been willing to make false allegations about Colin Kaepernick because they felt jaded in some way. Remember, he had an issue in Florida with this chick, Tiana Taylor, back in the day when he was messing with her. So the police have been a very good friend to Colin Kaepernick.
Know that you were right to want to address racial oppression. Who know that you were right when you say that you didn't deserve to be blackballed and you didn't deserve to have your cause politicized. All of us are fighting on behalf of you, but you are the one that won't speak up for yourself. Do you have a problem with that?
I have a problem with you guys trying to speak up for someone who does not speak up for themselves. You can't blame them. Why should they do the work that you're already doing for them? Someone has to show that they actually have an awareness, an astute awareness of the quote unquote cause that they allege to believe in, by speaking their mind, by confronting their accusers. That is what Muhammad Ali always did. That's why it's hilarious to me when they try to correlate Colin Kaepernick and or LeBron James with Muhammad Ali, who will go on talk shows and have debates with many of these media members, political figures, etc., who never showed any hesitation in doing so. Colin Kaepernick, nowhere to be found. LeBron James, nowhere to be found when it comes to saying anything of note or of importance. But when he has to deny any association with an understanding of what's going on in China, then he can run his mouth and speak his mind. That's why these guys, they're a joke. Wokeism is a major revenue stream today.
I think the thing is, in the black community, like I said, I'm in the streets.
Allegedly, you're quote unquote in the streets. There's another attempt by him to associate himself with the so-called black community so that he can get subscribers, so that he can get followers, and, you know, get more attention for his podcast. That's all this is about. If Terrell Owens is actually on the streets, it's because he's having problems paying his mortgage bill.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
The thing is, I think, Stephen A., you have a platform. It's okay to disagree, but it was the way you were going about it. It was almost like you were attacking him. And I think the thing with Colin Kaepernick and the way that things shifted right at the doorstep of this workout is just the transparency.
Terrell Owens, why did it shift right at the door of the workout? Was that necessarily the NFL's fault, or was that Colin Kaepernick's fault? I'm sure that cats will be upset. There'll be a lot of fake pro-blackities in the comment section. The NFL sent Kaepernick and his team the waiver on Wednesday. It can't take more than a minute and a half to 2 minutes to read, peruse, and get an understanding of what the necessities are going to be, what the prerequisites are going to be for the workout. That's if you're an agent or a lawyer and you're accustomed to reading waivers like that. After that, it's your job to tell your client, this is something that's good for you or this is something that's bad for you. I'm sure they did that for Kaepernick that day. And that was supposed to be the day that he said the NFL wanted me to work out for them, but I turned it down because this waiver was going to make things untenable. Instead, he chose to wait until Saturday, send them a fake bullshit ass waiver that he and his team drew up back to the NFL, and then hold his own workout so that he can get attention for himself.
To the document, as that related, I mean, as I was referring to it with the document, the waiver, again, like I said, when you insert language into something that's not standard, then obviously you have to take time to review those documents. And like I said, they weren't given adequate time to do that.
Now who's spreading misinformation? Terrell Owens. You have no idea what you're talking about, but it's okay. You're trying to be a woke Negro. I don't even think that Terrell Owens is really a woke Negro. He's even lesser than a fake pro-blackity. He's trying to masquerade as a fake pro-blackity. He's doing what he alleged Stephen A. Smith was doing, which is spewing misinformation, because he's not even smart enough to spread disinformation. Disinformation is when you're spreading erroneous data on purpose. Misinformation is when you're spreading erroneous data by mistake. So Terrell is not really built for the conversation that he's trying to have.
Now insert that and then think that he was going to sign it right at the door front, then that's not fair. You're giving him, if you're going to give him a fair workout, then give him a fair workout. He was allowed no media access. They were trying to dictate who his receivers were.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I have to stop you there. I am on the air right now listening to a Hall of Famer.
Yes, you're listening to a Hall of Famer who's used to making excuses. Terrell Owens has been making excuses for his whole career. As great a player as he was full of excuses, even more than Colin Kaepernick. This nonsense about he was not going to be given his own receivers. He's not going to get his own receivers if he gets signed to a team. So what are you really talking about, man?
I believe has had a multitude of opportunities to highlight unfairness that has been exacted from him. Did that stop you from accepting the challenge, knowing that you were walking into situations that were flagrantly unfair, that you were operating behind the eight ball at a disadvantage, courtesy of a system and an entity that obviously had a lot of power and influence to compromise whatever your aspirations were? You do it, I do it. There are people that sit up there. You ain't the only one that accused me of attacking him. I would ask you to recall what I said. What I said is that I have been supporting this man. What I didn't support was you sending, not you, meaning him, sending the message that everything has to be ideal and everything has to be fair.
Right, but that's the mentality that you helped to foster, Stephen A. Smith, when you supported him, when you already knew that he does not have the intelligence, the wherewithal, or the knowledge base to speak for himself. He just doesn't have it. And people can get upset with me for saying that if they want to. I have to blame you. I can't blame him, because you already know that he has those issues, and yet you chose to support him on an exterior level because you didn't want to look like a sellout. Now you want to aim all of this, energy at him to expose him, and that's why people are calling you out, Stephen A. Smith. You should have just been true to what you knew from the very beginning. That being that something was rotten in Denmark, something was smelly with this dude. But you couldn't say it outright because you were on TV and you were worried about how you were going to be perceived.
In order for me to embrace the challenge to acquire what I have been behind the scenes through my camp telling everybody I want. If you don't want to work out, that's fine. If you think it's unfair and you want, and I know Max, you want to get in, I'm going to bring you in. Yeah. And if you don't think it's fair, that's fine. And you want to get your lawyer, and your lawyer wants to stand up there and say, this waiver is an issue. We're ready to work out, but not until they alter this waiver, etc. That's different. But to not do the workout, to change locations, and then to go and give a speech to the media without taking any questions, any inquiry as to what's really going on.
And that's the hilarious thing. Supposedly he's upset that there was not going to be any media at the NFL's workout, but he didn't speak to the real media at his workout. He came and just gave a weak, whack-ass diatribe to his followers and then walked off. That's why I say that, this guy, he's trying to build up a cult of personality. He has a very large cult on the internet, and he has a large cult in person. And that's very consistent with mind-controlled assets. They're normally placed as proxy leaders to see how they can engineer a certain environment. They've been doing things like this for 5 or 6 decades.
You are leaving others to surmise what the hell happened.
Can I
and I
answer
don't
that
think
real
that's
quick?
fair.
Tio, do you mind if I jump in, Tio?
Yes, before you do that, but
Go ahead,
what
go.
I wanted is transparency, Stephen A. And that's like I've done it.
So you're asking the NFL to be transparent when Colin Kaepernick has not been transparent for 3 years. I got you.
Had incidents throughout the course of my career, and then there have been times where I've gone into interviews where I've done an hour and a half, 2 hours of an interview, and then they break down and they edit, and then you guys get.
Very simple solution for that. You're Colin Kaepernick. You have your own YouTube page, at least presumably. If you don't, then you should. You have your own Instagram page. You have someone that you trust interview you and ask you the questions that you know the public and your followers want to hear your answers for. Problem solved. He's never even done that. Why is that? Because he knows that he has 0 answers. And that's why he's become the patron saint for lost liberal Negroes, aka wokety wokes, because they have no real answers. So that's why they gravitate towards him. And he knows, just like the Wizard of Oz, that his power lies in him lying in subterfuge.
And you guys get on the show, and there's a panel of people, and then they break down whatever clips that they show. They're not showing the entire hour and a half or 2 hours of that interview that I've done. So what he wanted was transparency for people to see.
That's an old and tired excuse that would have been relevant back in the 1980s, 1990s, and even the early 2000s. But now that we have social media, that's no longer relevant. That's not an excuse. Sorry. No.
Full workout to see the full Colin Kaepernick. Again, you mentioned obviously Max is going to get in here, and like I said, I'm in the streets.
Yeah, you can't wait for Max to get in there, and we know you in the streets. Supposedly he's an activist now. Everybody wants to be an activist nowadays. It's like these guys who come into my comment section. I always know when they have nothing real to say, they start saying shit like, "Well, what are you doing for the black community?" And they think they're saying something incisive or deep or cutting, something along those lines. That's the exact problem. You're always looking for what someone else is doing as opposed to what you're doing. If we all handle our business as individuals, first when it comes to ourselves, then to our family, we're no longer going to need some magical, mystical Negro to start programs for our children for us or to do other things for our family for us. The point of being a man is that you preside over yourself and over your family, and everything else that you get is extra. Don't get it twisted. The charity that you provide for others is something that is a prerequisite, but it's between you and the Most High what you do. You're not supposed to be spending time explaining to some other dude what you're quote unquote doing for the for the so-called black community, but that's part of the welfare mentality that liberal Negroes have. They think everybody owes them something. And I said liberal Negroes. I'm not talking about all so-called black people, because you have a large amount of so-called black people who are trying to work for theirs and who are actually sincere and trying to help themselves, their family, and their community. But what woke Negroes want to do is point the finger at everybody else and say, "What are you doing for me?" No, that's not how life works.
Max almost seems blacker than you, Stephen A.
That was something that was way below the belt, but I'm not surprised. That was frustration on the part of Terrell Owens. That was a place that he had to go to because some of the things that Stephen A was saying were starting to frustrate him, and that was compounded upon the frustration that he already had from the previous day and probably the previous weekend when Stephen A. Smith made the rounds on Instagram with this little 3-minute message to Kaepernick. So he had to let that out. He had to let all the woketies know, I'm here to say the things that you want me to say to Stephen A. Smith. I'm going to quote unquote question his blackness, even though I'm the one who has at least one child by a white woman.
with his.
Now he knew that what he said was wrong because he started stuttering after that. With what? And he thought that was going to be a compliment for Master Kellerman. But look at Max's face. Even Max's face is like, come on, man, you've went too far with that.
with this commentary.
With all due respect, my brother.
I'm just saying, dog.
Wait a minute. Wait to finish.
I'm just saying, dog. No, I'm a woke nigga thinking like a woman. He got the reaction from Stephen A. that he wanted. It's like a liberal female. They'll always ask a man if he's mad because they want him to be upset by something that they've done. That provocatory mentality. That's what we're seeing here with Terrell Owens. He just wanted to get a response or a reaction. He has nothing deep to say. He just came to insult Stephen A. Smith. And part of this is Stephen A.'s fault because he's taking too much of the high road. With people like T.O., you have to let them know. Here's the difference between me and you. Here's why I'm at where I'm at. Here's why you're at where you're at. You made far more money than me during your playing career, but you wish that you were me right now. So that means that you've made a series of very bad decisions in your life. And now, like most people who've made bad decisions, you're going to make it about the quote-unquote quality of your blackness.
I'm going to check you right now. You don't cross the line.
I'm just saying.
Time. Wait a minute. You don't cross the line. First of all, like I said, you, Colin Kaepernick, Eric Reed, any of y'all that want to debate me in front of black people and talk about what's best for black people, name the time and place, I'll show up.
Well, that's not going to happen because those guys, they don't understand or know shit. So we know that's not going to happen, Stephen A. Smith.
What's the definition of blackness? Is there a definitive definition of blackness? Why are you giving the impression that...
Well, I think that the definition of blackness might be T.O.'s gums. Who the hell knows? Once again, there's no such thing as black as a race. Black is a corporate title, it's a corporate designation. It's governmental. It's not realistic. But that's part of the problem that so-called black people have. I have people come on my channel, why do you say so-called black as opposed to black? I say so-called black because that's a title that has been put upon our people. It's a corporate designation / government designation because the government is a corporation, by all intents and purposes. But just to get back to the point, Terrell's trying to have a conversation that's really above his pay grade. So that's why he has to go there. Now he's trying to engage in locker room insults with Stephen A. Smith. And that's what happens when you take people seriously who are not supposed to be taken seriously. T.O.'s on the show for ratings. So Stephen A. has to deal with this Pandora's box that he opened.
I don't march lockstep with every single thing that Colin Kaepernick wants. Okay, excuse me. Hold on.
I'm not agreeing. Wait a minute. I'm not agreeing with everything that Colin Kaepernick has done.
I'm not saying that, but you said, you just sat up there and used an expression, more blacker. Excuse me, I'm from Hollis, Queens, New York City. You ain't the only brother out there that's in the streets. I'm in the streets every day. I get it. So let's be very clear. And you damn well know that's the truth. And so my point to you is this. Again, I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm not going to go that route. But based on just what you just said, this is supposedly Stephen A. and T.O. going at one another. Did you know that I invited Colin Kaepernick to give him this platform for the entire 2 hours?
Well, we know that's never going to happen, Stephen A. I mean, come on.
I said you can edit the damn show. You can have it live. We can talk whatever you want to talk. The floor is yours. I also gave that invitation to Eric Reed. I know people at other networks that has given Colin Kaepernick that same thing.
You mean Skip Bayless? Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. And let me say this. In that video that I did called Woke Wars, I was just trying to hypothesize over why Shannon Sharpe suddenly has taken this extreme turn on Colin Kaepernick. Not even a left turn, a complete U-turn. And it's very obvious that there's been some communication between Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe because they do know one another. I'm not quite sure how close of friends they are, but by both accounts, by the accounts of both men, they are friends. And also there's been some communication between Shannon Sharpe and Marcellus Wiley, who we know has recently made some very strident assertions about Colin Kaepernick recently. Things that I've been saying for the last 3 years, and also Jason Whitlock to a degree for the last 3 years. Marcellus Wiley has now accepted that, and I know that Shannon Sharpe and Marcellus are relatively close. So I think that it's starting to make the rounds that certain people have inside information on Colin Kaepernick, and they're sharing it with some of these brothers, and now it's finally starting to come out on the air.
Disagreed with him to some degree. Are you questioning their blackness too?
He's talking about Shannon Sharpe. Let me rewind this back a little bit.
I I know people at other networks that has given Colin Kaepernick that same thing. They disagreed with him to some degree. Are you questioning their blackness too? Come on, man. There's certain things that's crossing the line.
Dude, I mean, you're taking it as disrespect. There's no disrespect.
There's no.
How could it not be any disrespect when you said that Max Kellerman is quote unquote blacker than Stephen A. Smith? I know that you're going to try to claim that it was a joke, but I mean, there are certain things that you do not joke about in that way in a public forum. Even if you're going to try to quote unquote question Stephen A. Smith's blackness, why would you do it in front of a Caucasian man? It's like, for example, when I used to work in corporate America, everybody knows that I have certain understandings about Barack Obama. But if I were going to state those things, it would only be towards another so-called black man who could receive that, and not in front of a group of people, certainly not in front of other Caucasians, because they're looking for that type of dissension. They're looking for so-called black people or black men to say Barack Obama's this or Barack Obama is that. They feed off of that. There are certain things, certain conversations that you should not say on national television. So why would you say that? You're a guest on this show and you would say that Max Kellerman is blacker than him, and you don't understand why that would be considered an insult? Showed me that you might have some mental issues.
Respect to that?
No, dude. It's tongue in cheek, but at the same time, like I said, I'm in the streets. Like I said, I hear what's going on. And as I said, like,
all that bullshit is just an attempt to build up his profile. I'm in the streets. I know what black people want, what they're about. If you're on Terrell Owens' Instagram, all you ever see him doing is working out. This dude he ain't out in no damn streets interviewing anybody. He's not woke. He's past being fake woke or fake pro-blackity. He's an actor trying to act as if he's a fake pro-blackity.
You don't have to agree. I don't totally agree with some of the things. As I texted you the other day, he could have articulated or expressed his thoughts better than he did in the interview. Or if he didn't want to do that, he could have had his representative speak on his behalf. Yeah, you probably offered that platform for him to come on and speak on whatever, but he hasn't done that. That's not for me or you to say why he did or he didn't or how.
How could it not be for Stephen A. Smith to say why he didn't if you're claiming, according to you, you claimed that Colin Kaepernick will not want to do a private interview because they might chop it up however they want? Stephen A. Smith's response was he could come on my show live and engage in an interview. So either way, you're just trying to protect Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, once again, he's like the Wizard of Oz. Pro-wokeity, some of these guys might kill themselves if they found out that Colin Kaepernick was a fake, because they put so much spirit and energy into him and into his fake image.
Excuse me, guys. Terrell, Stephen A. Sorry to interrupt you guys, but we do have to get in a quick commercial break. We are definitely going to continue this.
We're definitely going to continue the public character assassination of Stephen A. Smith. This is so entertaining, watching these two Negroes go back and forth. Be back in 3 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to pick up where we left off with Terrell Owens making a jackass of himself.
Welcome back to First Take. If you're just joining us, we're discussing Colin Kaepernick's decision to not attend the NFL's workout but set up his own this past Saturday. Apparently, he was not comfortable signing a waiver provided by the NFL. The NFL positioned it as a standard workout waiver, which we found out was factually incorrect. There was more to it, vague language, that Colin and his team were not comfortable. Terrell Owens, kind enough to join us this morning. He had an issue with Stephen A's take in supporting the NFL and being a little harsh, he thought, on Colin Kaepernick here. And I know, Max, you didn't have a chance to jump in, and I'm sure you want to respond on this conversation.
It got kind of explosive when T.O., you said...
Look at T.O.'s face when Molly said, Max, I know you wanted some time to respond. Look how T.O.'s head nodded like, yes, I can't wait to hear what Master Kellerman has to say. Let me wind this back a little bit.
Colin and his team were not comfortable. Terrell Owens, kind enough to join us this morning. He had an issue with Stephen A's take in supporting the NFL and being a little harsh, he thought, on Colin Kaepernick here. And I know, Max, you didn't have a chance to jump in, and I'm sure you want to respond on this.
Well, it's okay.
Steele said, yeah.
Kind of explosive when T.O., you said tongue-in-cheek, you said that I seem blacker than Stephen A., and Stephen A. obviously had to respond to that. And I want to respond to that before I say what I originally wanted to say, which is, first of all, I can't eat anymore all the cookouts I've been invited to. Like,
we already know that. Right now you're going through You're going through your second adolescence. Your first adolescence, you were trying to be a rapper. So you was trying to be black back in the early 90s. Now it's like you're going through your second adolescence. Some of these simple ass Negroes on the internet inviting you to their cookouts, not understanding that you don't eat pork. And you're not trying to be there anyway. The only reason why you're talking like that is because you know that that's what you have to say. Like, what else are you going to say? You're a Caucasian man on daytime television. Are you going to sit there and say, I'm against what Colin Kaepernick is doing? You're going to be called a racist. Basically, the only place where so-called Caucasians can speak their mind about a story like a Kaepernick would be on Fox News. Anywhere else, they have to say certain things. So I'm not quite even sure what this dude thinks, but I will give Mark Kellerman this much credit. He normally is very consistent when it comes to being a super liberal. He is pro-chaos. There's no doubt about that. So that means that he's pro-Kaepernick.
This whole thing came up, and I've seen a lot of people go at Stephen A's blackness, so to speak. And Stephen A, I'm going to say...
Because those are the same people who call everybody a coon who disagrees with them. And once again, they never have an end game. When you ask those same people, are the drug dealers, are the gang members in your communities, are they coons? They'll never respond. They'll make excuses for them. Well, they're just doing that. Well, you know, gangs really come from the Black Panthers. And, you know, cats out here hustling because we don't have opportunity. And, they always make excuses for them, right? But if you're a so-called black man who keeps your shit together, they'll call you a square. If you're a so-called black man who disagrees with a lot of the super liberal ideologies, they'll call you a sellout and a coon. So what exactly is your plan, woke Negro? We know that you have none. None. And certain people might say, why do you get on the woke Negro so hard for? It's because they don't have a real thought process. They know that they don't have a real thought process because it's almost impossible for them to provide anyone with a step-by-step understanding of what their plans are. What is your plan? You know what their actual plan is? Is to figure out a way to be quote-unquote equal with the white man. The same white man who they claim has oppressed them, who has culturally appropriated them, who has stolen America. They want to be equal to him. So that means that you want to be him. When you say that you want to be equal to somebody, you're saying that you want to be them. You very rarely hear a woke Negro say, and with all the talent that so-called black people have, you very rarely ever see woke Negroes say, we need to have our own land, our own government, our own understanding on life, our own ideologies, our own educational system. But the only way that we can have that is if we restore our culture. You never hear them speak in those ways. You never even hear woke Negroes talk about the so-called black man. They talk about so-called black people. You know why that is? Because they worship the feminine principle. That's why I state that racialism, when it comes to the liberal understanding or the liberal pathway of society and where society should go, they use race talk as a facade, as a red herring, really, as a Trojan horse mechanism to get you to accept the feminist ideologies, the pro-homosexual ideologies, the transgender ideologies. They don't really care about the race issue. They're trying to remove the so-called black man out of the equation. They want you pushed to the side. They want to work exclusively through the so-called black female, particularly the pansexual so-called black female. So you have cats like this, like Terrell Owens, who buy into this nonsense about Mark Kellerman being in his corner. Max Kellerman, aka Mark Kellerman, is already on record as saying, I'm not going to give up not one bit of my privilege. So in other words, I'm going to say what I need to say to make you think that I'm your friend.
Thing about you here, I hope that's okay. Stephen A, I mentioned earlier in the show, and this gets personal for both of us because people are talking about us and our views on this subject. Stephen A, as I mentioned, was late reading. His mother, who worked multiple jobs, 6 days a week, no vacations, 20 straight years, many kids, taught him how to read. That island work ethic, I see Stephen A as having inherited not only a respect for authority, but a working knowledge of reality and what it takes to get ahead. No excuses. You can always look for excuses. You can look for things to lean on. You can look for where it's not perfect. Or you can do what you have to do, which is what Stephen A has done.
And work your way up and try to change things from the inside. And that's basically Stephen A's mentality. That's his mechanism. And that's to be respected. Of course, there are other pathways to change things, but there's never a pathway to change things, at least successfully, through chaos. There are certain people who are on the upper rungs of society who use people on the lower rungs as pawns to be the executors of chaos so that they can establish their own order. But the masses are never going to be able to get change or successful change through chaos. All the riots that sprung up in the 60s, did it change anything? Absolutely not.
What his mother did before him and provided that opportunity. And Stephen A., I hope it's okay that I'm saying this now. I have a lot of admiration from everything, for your mother, from everything I understand. And I would say that that your point of view, Stephen A's point of view, is not less black necessarily than someone else's who's more strident.
Brothers, I hope that you're paying very close attention to what's occurring right here. The liberal Caucasian Jewish man actually is tightening the leash on the liberal Negro, represented by Terrell Owens. He basically saying, here, boy, stop barking at the non-liberal Negro. I'm not even going to call Stephen A. Smith a quote-unquote conservative because, as I've stated, when I use that term liberal, it's not meant to be representative of the paradigm of liberal versus conservative. When I use the term liberal, I'm talking about Luciferian ideologies. So basically, because Stephen A. Smith has not fully immersed himself from a societal perspective into liberalism, the liberal Negro is going to attack him. So now the liberal or super liberal Caucasian Jew who has the authority, who has the power, he's telling Terrell Owens to stand down. I hope that, once again, I hope that cats are seeing what is being displayed here. So I always tell you, that is what the architecture is. Liberal black gets their orders from the liberal Caucasian gets their orders from the liberal Caucasian Jew. The liberal Caucasian Jew tells all the liberals what to do. Why do you think that those females in the squad, or at least the vast majority of them, are siding with Bernie Sanders? I believe that Ayanna Presley is not siding with Bernie Sanders, but I think that it's because she already understands how bad it would look. Her, as a so-called pro-blackity woman, she has to side with, another woman. She cannot side with Bernie Sanders. It just looks bad. The optics are bad. But behind closed doors, she's with him as well.
Is more conservative in certain respects. And my point of view is oftentimes more progressive. My own background is
progressive, aka liberal. While when it comes to yourself and your own family, I'm sure that you have quote unquote conservative values, quote unquote.
Jewish secular, not religious, but Jewish secular. So one of the things you get around Passover is act like you were a slave in Egypt. That's how I grew up. With that tradition of always.
Right, but we know that you guys were not slaves in Egypt. So, I mean, that's not even worth a debate.
Look at the oppressed and look for righteousness and justice. And so I'm strident in that way. However, myself, I did not have to go through the struggle like that. So I have a different point of view that Stephen A. will oftentimes say is overly idealistic and not as realistic sometimes. And we argue about that ideologically, but that doesn't, but Stephen A., when someone goes at you that way, but I feel like saying something about it, and you can respond to that.
I will.
But I wanna bring up what I had a problem with the Kaepernick thing, and why I think Stephen A., you and I are arguing about it. Yahoo Sports' Charles Robinson summed it up very well, I think. Given the broad language of the waiver, the NFL could have altered any agreement made with Kaepernick, regardless of how damaging those changes or actions might have been. And then he lists some examples. And where you and I differed is, I felt like you were taking the NFL's word for it.
So in other words, what this person, Charles Rogers, is saying is that based on the verbiage in the waiver, which was only pertaining to the workout, the NFL could have jumped in and altered a contract that Kaepernick signed with an NFL team. And I guess he really believes that the NFL would try to alter the contract that Kaepernick has with a team and not be worried about the public perception if they were to do such a thing. This is what I mean when I say with the wokeities, they're always trying to push the fake conspiracy. There's nothing wrong with understanding conspiracy. All the term or the word conspire means is to breathe together, to breathe as one, meaning to be of one spirit, of one mind. In order to rule, you have to be of one mind. So you have to conspire. But when you start to jump from one lily pad to the next, to to try to corroborate a hypothetical scenario, to once again victimize Colin Kaepernick, this is why he's considered more trouble than he's worth. His supporters are actually helping Colin Kaepernick's detractors in making their case against Colin Kaepernick. You're not helping him, you're hurting him. If you would fall back and just allow things to go how they would go naturally, because at the end of the day, Colin Kaepernick or any other athlete who has besmirched the NFL in some way or has hurt their ability to generate revenue is not going to be able to step back on the scene like nothing happened. That's just a part of life. So if he's not willing to take those steps to reingratiate himself back into the NFL culture, then that's why I've stated that this is a cultural issue also. Colin Kaepernick is being used as a force to bring cultural Marxism into the NFL. I had one dingbat in my comment section trying to say, how could Nike be trying to push cultural Marxism through Kaepernick? Once again, wokeism, fake wokeism is very lucrative for Nike. I don't think that people grasp that. These notions of faux equality, that's how they're promoting their organization right now. And all of their athletes are being told to push that. These notions of fake equality. Women are being oppressed. Okay, Serena, that's your job to push. Young people are being oppressed. Odell Beckham, that's your job to push. Black people are being oppressed for everything, in every way, by the new president of the United States, Donald Trump. LeBron James, that's your job to push. And of course, the NFL, which is the most well-known sports league in America, they're oppressing black men. Colin Kaepernick, keep pushing that. Either they're going to capitulate to us and we'll be able to put you back into the NFL on our terms, and from there we can make the NFL more of a woke league, or we'll just continue to demonize the National Football League and claim that they're stopping us from being in that league and being the person that we want to be. And at the end of the day, Nike generates almost 5 times more money per year than the NFL. So they can win that war. The NFL knows that. That's why Bob Kraft, in my view, Bob Kraft brought Jay-Z to Roger Goodell to see if he could build bridges with, some of these other entities, especially the quote-unquote black woke contingent on the internet. See what Jay-Z could do about the Kaepernick situation, because Bob Kraft knows there's no way in the world that Roger Goodell or the owners were going to be able to resolve this issue. And that's what I think certain brothers are missing in this overall storyline. Where certain pieces fit and why they were placed in the positions that they were placed in.
Like the NFL was saying, this is this and this is this, and even if Jay-Z or whoever is upset now because Kaepernick could have had a job, even if, I didn't believe that. I'm skeptical of that. And based on the language I saw in the waiver, it feels to me like they were being disingenuous, and the whole point was to smuggle Kaepernick's signature onto that waiver.
All right. I got a couple of things that I want to get in here about. First of all, with all due respect, first of all, I appreciate that, Max, thank you. But with all due respect, y'all are not hearing me correctly. It's not that I'm taking the NFL side. It's that I was communicating with Kaepernick's people leading up to the workout. And their actions were not consistent with what they had been telling me they wanted.
Because they used you, Stephen A. Smith. They used you. And that to me is why you were probably so frustrated that Saturday when things happened how they happened. Because you realized that you got used.
That is what everybody's missing. If T.O. hypothetically sat up there and said, Stephen A., I just want to get back in the NFL.
Which he does. But he knows that he'll never get back in the NFL. So now he's trying to use the Kaepernick story as a way to express his own frustration with the league.
Stephen A., come on, man. He did, I did this for us, man. The fight that I fought, it ain't right that I'm being blackballed, etc., etc. Will you help me? And I am helping you. And others are helping you. And it leads to 25 different teams willing to come see you work out when you said all you wanted was one call. And then you don't show up. I'm looking at it from the standpoint, no, it's not idealistic. No, it's not fair. There obviously is some stuff they might try to slide in there. I don't know. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, you're saying you want to work out for a team.
Wait a minute, Stephen A. Smith. The woke Negroes on the internet, the fake woke Negroes on the internet are saying that Colin Kaepernick has the right to go against the employer, even though 90% of them have to be to work by 9 a.m. the next day, and they would not dare show up late. But as usual with super liberal Negroes and super liberal Caucasians, they advocate for people to do things that they themselves would not do, showing you how disingenuous they are and how much they are promoters of chaos.
To showcase yourself, and 25 of them showed up. Is it perfect? Is it perfectly set up? Probably not. But that's not what you said leading up to the workout. So it's not about me taking the NFL. Forget the NFL's word. Forget the liability waiver. It's what you have been saying spanning months, and I have text messages to prove it. That was inconsistent with what happened Saturday. Now, hold on. Please, I apologize.
Go ahead.
Now back to you, T.O.
It's about time you finally got a backbone with that damn Molly Karam.
Let me tell you something, man. Let me be very, very clear. And this is no disrespect to Max Kellerman at all. The other day on the air, I said to Max Kellerman, when it comes to racism, you're a spectator. You're not somebody who's been victimized by it, like black people have. So there's just a portion of this that has nothing to do with him. When you sit up there and you imply that a white dude is more black than me, you don't just insult me, you insult yourself.
He's too stupid to understand that, Steve. He's too stupid to understand that he actually insulted himself. And I'm not quite sure if you're going to take the angle that I'm going to take. But he cast himself as the slave when he looked at a Caucasian man and said, you're quote unquote blacker than Stephen A. Smith. In other words, it's better to listen to you than to listen to what Stephen A. has to say. That's why I highlighted how much control Max Kellerman had over T.O. when he started to explain Stephen A.'s background. It's a shame that you need a third party to act as an official or an arbiter between two so-called black men, and that arbiter has to be a so-called Caucasian man. Shows you how lost T.O. is mentally. But what do you expect? He's a wokey woke.
You have gone about the business of denigrating a brother because he's not marching lockstep with what you believe he should be. Now, if I spoke and said there is no racial oppression, there is no racism, there is no police brutality, that I could understand. But all of this is because I've taken the position. As unfair as the NFL may have been in all of this, and they have a different story, at the end of the day, you're saying you want to work out for an NFL team, it's there for you. And you walk in, and then I bring up how he walks in with a Kuta Kente shirt. I said, if you've got 31 of the 32 owners who are white billionaires, how is that going to come across? You know what somebody said to me the other day? If he had to go to court, would he have showed up in that shirt? No.
Of course not. Everyone understands that you dress according to the occasion. If you're going to a wedding, you wear a tuxedo or a suit. If you're going to war, you wear your fatigues or your battle camouflage, whatever. When he goes out to play, he's going to have to wear a uniform. Is he going to try to draw so-called pop culture black images on his jersey and think that he can get away with it? And if the NFL says no, that he's being oppressed? Remember, once again, he's a Nike athlete. So Odell Beckham does that week to week. Supposedly he's being oppressed whenever he's unable or he's not allowed to deviate from the uniform code stipulated by the NFL. So we already know that. We already know T.O. is going to try to claim that it's not a big deal. But presentation matters. We all know that. But at the end of the day, he went to his own workout. He didn't go to the NFL's workout so he can dress how he wants at his workout because he was just there to publicize himself.
That probably would have alienated you against the judge. The same principle applies. If you know that you want something, but you are displaying actions that gets in the way of you accomplishing that, where is that going to get you? And my last point is this. We got young brothers and young sisters out here who are looking at you, me, him, various others, role models, direction, how to act to get what you want. And all I'm saying is, yo, there's a whole bunch of people fighting for you, Colin Kaepernick. If you get in your own way by how you elect to handle something, how is that going to help you? T.O., you and I have had this conversation about you in the past, where I pulled you to the side. We've had private conversations, and I said to you, yo, T.O., it ain't going to work. But the reason why I had so much respect for you back then, and I do now, don't get...
No, you don't. And it's okay if you admit that you've lost respect for the man. How could you not? The dude totally disrespected you on national TV because he was looking to get some clout on the internet. Like, give me a break.
But I'm just talking about at that time was because you were someone who was willing to stand front and center and speak for yourself and address the inquiry out there so no one could misinterpret what you were saying or could speak for you. You were speaking for you.
That's my quarterback.
Man he's given a little paragraph or speech here, then he goes away and leaves black people to go against one another.
Agent of chaos.
He calls himself trying to be a galvanizing figure. I don't get that.
Yes, you do. You just can't say it on television. Because at this point, Stephen A. Smith, if you still don't get it, I have to question your intellect. I believe that you understand a lot more than you're letting on national TV because you know how the average person is going to take it. But you've already alluded to it. This person does what all agents of chaos do. I'm talking about Colin Kaepernick. And then go run and hide behind a corner and peek out to see what's happening in the after effects of that cherry bomb that he threw.
I don't get that. Floor is yours.
Well, Stephen, I think, like I said, I think for us as black people, I think we understand the seat that you sit in. You have a platform. So again,
once again, Terrell Owens is showing you how jealous he is. That's why the first thing that he mentions is Stephen A. Smith's seat and his platform. Sometimes I get people on my channel and they're trying to bicker with me. And within 2 responses, they start to talk about my subscribers or my quote unquote followers or how many people I have on my channel. And that's the real issue. That's when you can always tell when someone is jealous. I could care less about nonsense like that because I'm going to say what needs to be said. But many people, they live through that. Their life is validated or justified by how much attention they're getting or how much attention they perceive someone else is getting. And just the fact that Stephen A. Smith is speaking to Terrell Owens as a man, and he said, okay, the floor is yours. The first thing that Terrell Owens led with was Stephen A. Smith's platform, because that's what he wants. That's what he's lusting after. He's looking for attention. Terrell Owens is.
Earlier, we can all disagree with some of the things that he's done, but I think, you know, from us as a black community, we watch you and you're very great at what you do. We feel like, okay, you can disagree.
T.O. said, we feel like all of a sudden he's speaking for so-called black people now. Remember, he said he's quote unquote in the streets every day. Wokeism is a major revenue stream now.
I think it was just a manner in which they felt, or we felt, that you were attacking Colin Kaepernick.
Who's they? The people on your Instagram?
But I just told you why.
Right, I get that. And so again, obviously in a good faith situation, this wasn't good faith in regards to the NFL and how they orchestrated this workout. They can't just insert language in there and then expect him to sign it and then...
Well, they sent it to his representation 4 days before the workout. So how bad is his representation that it took them that long to go over it? Or maybe they went over it and said, okay, we have an idea. We're just going to draw up something new, have our own workout, and then claim that this is the issue, that the NFL changed the waiver on us and added this verbiage as a way to, once again, oppress this righteous ruler, Colin Huey P. Kaepernick. Also, you know what? Let's print up some more Know Your Rights t-shirts. Let's go on wokenegro.com and see what the price is on printing up 1,000 Know Your Rights t-shirts.
And he's going to hang himself. Like I said, if he didn't have those representatives there to go through these documents, read it. And
what documents? You mean that little 2-page waiver? Give me a break.
At the end of the day, like Howard and you guys discussed the other day, he was going to basically hang himself at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. If Colin had signed that waiver, who knows what might have happened. He might have actually had to go to the workout and show how good he was and open up the real dialogue on what the NFL was going to do. See, that's how you put the NFL on the hook. You don't put them on the hook by creating your own workout. You put them on the hook if that's truly what you want to do by attending the workout, showing out, balling out, and now the NFL has to say, well, what do we do now? I'm sure that naysayers will say, well, how do we know that the NFL would give an accurate appraisal of how well Colin Kaepernick did? Because they would not allow any cameras into the facility. I promise you that Jay-Z wants Kaepernick back into the NFL. Because until he brings Kaepernick in, he cannot highlight any of his performers on Rock Nation, in the Super Bowl halftime shows, or at any other events associated with the NFL, because it's going to look too bad on Jay-Z. Jay-Z wants his narrative to be closed off. People claim Jay-Z is a slave to the NFL. No, he's a business partner to the NFL. Jay-Z's a pawn also. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that he's some type of king on the chessboard. No, he's not. He is a member of the boule, so he acts as an intermediary between the masses and the ruling class or ruling elite. But he is a very important piece. He's someone who knows that it's in his best interest for Colin Kaepernick to be back in the NFL. So they were not going to jerk Colin around with this. The fact of the matter is that big bank take little bank. Nike has more money than the NFL right now. So Colin is going to side with Nike unless and until Nike gives him the order to make this shit work.
What he wanted, like I said, is just full transparency as far as this workout is concerned.
And Steve, if I may, I think, Stephen A., you're focusing on Kaepernick's suboptimal behavior. This is a technique that the power structure frequently uses when someone's, like, when there's injustices suffered upon an oppressed group or individual. Well, his behavior or her behavior is suboptimal. We're not talking about that. There are points that I will agree with you about Kaepernick where I think he could have behaved better and it would have helped him. However, the underlying premise from which you're operating, and here's the difference between what you call realistic and you say that I'm being idealistic, is that he needs to accept basic unfairness.
No, he needs to understand that his conduct, whether you agree with his conduct or not, has altered the rapport in his relationship, his personal relationship with the NFL.
And his suboptimal behavior does not take away the fact that there's basic unfairness going on. 3 years, no job, even though he's good enough to play. And
according to you, he's quote unquote good enough to play. There are a lot of guys sitting at home who consider themselves good enough to play. There really is no track record for your claims that Colin Kaepernick is quote unquote good enough to play. We can say that because he went to the Super Bowl, but the last time that we saw him, he was 1-10 with a football team. These are just the facts.
Try to use this real quick as an opportunity. They know when the NFL does this, they know if he doesn't do everything we say, there will be those in the media. In this case, it was you saying bad Kaepernick. But meantime, that's not a good enough reason for him to sign away his rights.
Okay, first.
Sign away his rights to what? To a work? All the waiver basically said is that the NFL would not be responsible if Kaepernick were to hurt himself in the workout. That's all it said. On the football field, with the equipment, so on and so forth. That's all it really was about.
Well, nobody told him to sign away his rights. I never said that.
Right, if he disagreed, just don't show up for the workout. But why all this misdirection? I disagree with the waiver, so I'm going to draw up my own waiver and then have my own workout. Really? So then why don't you form your own football league then?
Fact of the matter is that his lawyers could have handled that and insisted upon. Wait a minute, no, they could have handled it.
But they didn't give him enough time to.
But wait a minute.
How do you know that? Stephen A. should have asked Terrell Owens, how much time did the NFL give Colin Kaepernick to go over the waiver, or Colin Kaepernick seemed to go over the waiver? I promise you, Terrell Owens does not know.
They gave him the waiver Wednesday. You heard nothing from them until Friday night. The NFL, which Colin Kaepernick's camp did not deny, got the new waiver 12:30, 2.5 hours before the workout. And at 2:30 p.m., when the NFL said that was unacceptable, Colin Kaepernick's camp informed the media that he wouldn't be there.
His camp said standard waiver.
Wait a minute, but that's
right.
That's
so why wasn't it acceptable?
Forget all of that, because that's not where.
Terrell Owens said, why wasn't Colin Kaepernick's waiver acceptable? These guys really think, and unfortunately, woke Negroes, they teach this shit to their children. That's how cycles continue. And people might say, well, yeah, you just trying to push a black man being subservient to the white man. No, nigga, you have to understand. When you have an entitlement issue, that shit trickles over into your interactions within our own people. All the bullshit philosophies that woke niggas have towards the Caucasian that you just talk about on the internet, you act out with your own people, a sense of entitlement, the everything's supposed to go my way mentality. You don't want to defer to the next so-called black man. You just talk about not deferring to the Caucasian, but 95% of you woke Negroes will defer to the Caucasian in real life situations, especially in the workplace. So Terrell Owens, no disrespect, he don't really have anything to say on this issue. Why the hell would you think that the NFL is going to receive a waiver drawn up by Colin Kaepernick and his team and accept that shit? He's trying to work for them. They're not trying to work for him, or allegedly he's trying to work for them. Really, he's working with Nike. If Nike drew up a waiver that said, look, you can come into our building here in Oregon, wherever Nike's located, but if you open the door and you slip and fall, it's not our fault. I promise you, he still sign off on that damn waiver.
I'm going because you on this show because of my position. So allow me to say what my position is. Max Kellerman, when you use the word suboptimal and all of this other stuff, I ask you a very simple and rhetorical question somewhat. You're sitting here and you've gotten Kaepernick's side. What if you found out that, and I'm not accusing Colin Kaepernick of being untruthful, I'm just hypothetically speaking here. What if you found out that what Colin Kaepernick was saying was untrue and you had gone on the airwaves in support of him? Believe it was true.
I would look dead at the camera and say I was misled or lied to, depending on the extent of it, by Kaepernick.
And what I am saying to you, I am saying to you that based on my communication with his camp leading up to the workout, I feel misled. That is what I'm saying.
But this is what I want to get at. Right there, stay right there. In spirit, I understand. And the NFL used that spirit because they knew people would feel that way.
No, sir. No. You're trying to digress over into another lane. What Stephen A. Smith is saying is that he was pawned by the Kaepernick camp. And now you're trying to claim that the NFL is trying to pawn people through Stephen A. Smith's interaction with the Kaepernick camp. Knock it off, man.
Asking for this opportunity. If he doesn't sign on the dotted line, everyone's going to come at him. And they use that to smuggle in bad language in the contract.
Because what you're missing, Max, is you're talking about the NFL's actions. I'm talking about the words that came out of their mouth to me directly, the level of desperation.
Alleged desperation.
Spoken to owners. I have spoken to executives. I have spoken to NFL officials. I have spoken to Players Association officials on behalf of Colin Kaepernick at the request of Colin Kaepernick.
What did they say? He's going to sign away his rights for that?
No. What I'm saying to you is this. I and numerous others who don't have this platform but are in the media, we all share the frustration. So that's where this comes from. If T.O. or Eric Reed or anybody else disagrees with that, nothing but respect. But for it to then be an indictment against me, I'm not backing up T.O. I'm not backing up one bit. I'm not running from where I stand, how I feel, what I express, and why.
Well, you shouldn't. And Max alluded to earlier of what you've had to endure, the hardships, you know, things with your mom, this and that and the other. But just because you had to endure those hardships, you can't expect somebody else to endure those same hardships.
No, that's another topic once again. The point being is that, or at least the point that Max Kellerman appeared to be trying to make, is that Stephen A. Smith was imbued with certain character traits and values that allowed him to become a success. We are whatever we think we are. We're going to be whatever we think we want to be. So we have to have that path. If you're constantly believing that you're a victim, that's what you're going to be your whole life. So Stephen A. Smith is not expecting Colin Kaepernick to have to go through the same trials and travails and tribulations that he had to go through. The only thing that Stephen A. Smith is asking for is the same thing that Colin Kaepernick claims he wanted from the NFL, that being transparency. Stephen A. Smith is trying to say that Colin Kaepernick's team has tried to convey to him a certain level of desperation that was, or at the time when it appeared as if the NFL was interested in making it happen with him. That's why I use the analogy of a man marrying a woman who may have committed some indiscretions against him. That woman cannot be upset when all of a sudden now the man wants a prenuptial agreement before the ceremony. The conditions have changed because you changed them. If that woman is desperate enough to marry that man, she'll sign the prenuptial agreement. Of course, 2 or 3 years later, when she wants a divorce, she'll claim that she was forced to sign the prenup under duress, but that's neither here nor there.
Bring that up. That was Max.
I get that, but like I said, I'm just segueing to what he said. I'm just trying to elaborate on what he was saying. So again, you're being a black man, knowing that we have gone through some of these things. You have gone through some of those things with white bosses or whatever the case may be.
I have.
Right. So why do you feel that Colin Kaepernick should have to do the same thing? He believes in what he believes in. He's standing in his truth.
Because if you stand in your truth, that means you don't want to come back to the NFL. If the NFL is as corrupt as Colin Kaepernick claims he believes it is, then for him to want to be a part of the NFL means that he's just as corrupt as them. That's what that means. In the same way, and that's why I made this statement earlier in the video, when woke Negroes talk about how they want to be equal to the Caucasian, what are they really saying? No matter how much you talk about the cultural appropriation and the oppression, you're really saying that you want to have the same traits and qualities as them.
You have a platform to help change the narrative, change the culture.
Don't black people get to be treated like with the same privileges as white people?
Exactly.
Here comes the super liberal Caucasian Jew jumping in. Don't so-called black people get to be treated with the same quote-unquote privileges? In order for you to make that point, you would have to say that black players in the NFL have one waiver and the Caucasian players have a different waiver. They're trying to make it a race issue when it's a Colin Kaepernick issue.
Advocacy, cultural allegiance.
Did you have a cultural allegiance to Terrell Owens when you skidded up in that white woman?
Eric Dyson was on this show Monday, and he said the same thing you said. He said the same thing Max said. He said the same thing I'm saying, all rolled up into one, because we understand the importance of unfairness and addressing it, and you have spoken to that on many occasions, T.O. The issue in question, however, is this. Knowing that that is the reality, how do you strategize to work your way around the minefields in order to facilitate getting what you want? So you might have the approach, T.O., hell with that.
Stephen A. Smith uses a word that's very foreign to Terrell Owens and people of his ilk, that being strategy or strategize. They don't believe in that. They believe in emoting as much as and as long as possible, whining until hopefully their Caucasian overlords feel sorry for them.
Out swinging.
Right, but we have to band together, and you're in a position to do that. It starts with one.
Yeah, let's band together and let's form our own league. How about that? If someone were to even broach that notion, watch how many of these wokey Negroes in the NFL fall by the wayside and start making excuses once they realize that if they were to partake in an enterprise like a black football league, their revenue, their income would diminish probably by, who knows, 90%. Because it would be a fledgling league. So how much loyalty do you actually have to your race? Or is it just talk? Is it just something that you want to do? Is it just another excuse to troll a Caucasian corporate structure that you're reaping a lot of benefits from? If you're intelligent, you take the revenue from an enterprise that's already set up and you bankroll your own enterprise, as opposed to trying to remain up in that environment and antagonize everyone. Why cannot we just build our own? Why can't we do that?
You have a platform to do that. Everybody watches this show. That's why I said that's why.
Yes, and you wish that you were Stephen A. Smith.
I did that? Are you ignoring the fact that I'm saying? How are you saying that, T.O., but ignoring the fact that I'm pointing out over the last several months that's exactly what I was doing? And then the stuff that happened Saturday happened. How do you ignore that?
Because he doesn't want you to work behind the scenes, Stephen A. Smith. He wants you to sit on TV all day and blame the NFL for everything that happens, just like he's done with his career, talking about Terrell Owens. He's a malcontent trying to act as if he's culturally aware. He has a personal beef with the NFL. Mark Kellerman jumping in talking about, when are black people going to be allowed the same privileges? Dude, you're already on record as saying that you're not giving up any of your privileges. What does the term privilege mean? It basically means a series of advantages. So if you're not going to give up your advantages, you want to remain on top of the so-called black man and woman. So who do you really think that you're fooling? If you can show that the NFL is giving a different waiver to the black athletes in the NFL than they are to the Caucasian athletes, then you have a great point. But if you're going to try to prove that the NFL is racist or oppressive because they gave a different waiver to Kaepernick as opposed to all the other players in the league, you're not proving anything other than the fact that you're an idolater of Colin Kaepernick.
So why do you feel that everybody is attacking you then? It's just not...
Because it's just groupthink and a cult mentality. That's why Stephen A. Smith is getting attacked. It doesn't mean that your argument is any more valid. All that means is that a very verbal portion of the so-called black community, that being the woke internet portion, has decided that they're going to levy a lot of vitriol Stephen A. Smith's way. That's a part of being a truth teller, is that component is going to try to attack you because they don't deal with the truth very well.
Out of nowhere, why do you feel that everybody's coming at your head all of a sudden?
Because they feel that I'm being harder on him than I should be, when I believe what all of y'all are missing is what I'm saying. Which
everybody
no.
Right, but who is everybody? Everybody is not all so-called black people. Everybody's talking about you woke niggas. All right? You woke Negroes. Y'all are the ones who never can deal with the truth.
I think everybody's missing this one point. That's it. Okay. This one point that I'm trying to make. Right. Yo, there are others fighting for you. Show up for the workout. Okay, all right,
you guys. I feel like we're regurgitating the same thing over and over. We didn't have the correct information on the waiver. We came on the show. I was the one that read it. We thought it was a standard workout waiver, and then we found out about the language was different. He was signing away his rights, and then that's why everything got changed.
So in other words, it was your mistake, Molly Karam. You fucked it up. That's what you're trying to say.
Is there anything else?
I didn't read the different.
Okay, so then
paragraphs 2 and 7 in the waiver in the NFL waiver.
Stephen A. is different.
It's different, Stephen A. It's different. Just like my waiver was different. When I tried to try out for the Cincinnati Bengals again last week, they gave me a different waiver. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm mad.
But I read it.
But it wasn't favorable. Right, but it wasn't favorable for Colin.
So that means that you don't come back into the NFL. If somebody makes you an offer that you will refuse, that you're not going to accept, that means that you go your way and they go theirs. That's all that means. No need to bitch about it.
Didn't advise him to sign that.
Right, it was for the NFL, but
there was potential that he could never sue them again based
supposedly
anything, but they made it seem like it was just about the actual workout.
And I'm not saying he should have signed that waiver.
Couldn't work out.
The workout wasn't going to happen then.
No. I'm saying that there are folks that were saying that, excuse me, whatever your issue was, we could have worked it out. What happened is they didn't hear from them until 12:30.
No, they wouldn't work it out. Not according to Kaepernick's camp. The NFL would not budge on that.
Let me ask you one.
So then why did they wait until 12:30 p.m. on Saturday to present their own waiver then? If they were truly trying to work it out with the NFL. Wouldn't they have sent them the new waiver at 12:30 p.m. on Thursday as opposed to Saturday?
Before we go to break. So had we had the correct information, everything on Front Street in terms of the waiver, right? Mm-hmm. And we knew that Colin, to get this workout on Saturday, would be signing his rights away.
Mm-hmm.
Rights to what? Yes, if he signed the waiver, he was going to lose his right to free speech, his right to bear arms, his right to assemble. Give me a fucking break. All they were trying to do was tell Colin Kaepernick, don't come in here with no bullshit acting like you tripped over a dumbbell. Now you want to sue the NFL.
Would you still be with him attending that workout? Or do you think you would have came on the air with a different position?
That depends on what Colin Kaepernick wants. If Colin Kaepernick wants to be an activist and be somebody that's addressing issues that permeate through the African American community, my brother, I'm all for that. If you are saying, I just want a shot to get back in the NFL. My point is, get through Saturday and leave the army of people that you have available to you at the time, including people like myself.
Right, but the only army that he's concerned about is the Nike army. And he's a private in that army. He's not a sergeant. He's not a lieutenant. He's a private. He calls no shots. Nike just lets those dudes think that they call shots. He's a tadpole in that Nike pond. I would call LeBron maybe a sergeant. He's not even a lieutenant. But Odell and Kaepernick and those people, they're number privates. They get told what to do. They get told how to march. So, I mean, that's all he's concerned about. That's the only army that he's concerned about, is the army that he's already in, the Nike army.
To fight for you to get back in.
If it was a genuine offer, there will be another Saturday, because if the point was to smuggle in his signature on a waiver, then the issue they have is still outstanding, and he will have another opportunity.
Maybe Colin's intention was to do both, was to play, obviously, and to still be an active.
Go ahead, Tio. Go ahead, Tio.
Right. I mean, it's almost like, in a sense, it's almost like what we see from you, Stephen A., being who you are and the platform that you're that.
Right, but when are you guys, when I say you guys, I'm talking about you woke niggas, when are you guys going to stop looking to other people to represent your thoughts? This is not 1975 anymore. All this bullshit, oh, we don't have a voice. Yes, you do. You have social media. It's just that you don't use social media correctly. You use it for dumb shit. Twerking and smoking blunts and telling on yourself. If I get to see another nigga tell on himself for the crime that he committed on Facebook Live or on Instagram Live or some shit, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. These are the same people talking about how oppressed they are. We have opportunities. We have a voice now. We just have to utilize the platforms that we have and stay focused and have a plan. Is there racism in this society? Absolutely. This is not our rest. This is not our kingdom. But empty gestures and going back and forth and acting as if someone like Colin Kaepernick is oppressed? Absolutely not. Colin Kaepernick is going to make 7 figures, whether he's in the NFL or he just sits at home picking out his afro. Because Nike is going to keep using him until they cannot use him anymore. And then they'll just remove him.
On and what you're saying, and you keep saying we're missing this one point. What I see is almost like you're telling Colin, shut up and play.
Basically. He's already done most of the shutting up. It's not like Colin Kaepernick is talking. So Stephen A. does not even have to tell him to shut up and play. Colin Kaepernick has already shut up.
That's equivalent to what Laura Ingram was trying to tell the basketball players, shut up and dribble.
This is another woke argument tactic. Woke Negroes love to tell people what they think that person is saying as opposed to addressing what that person actually said. Because they cannot construct a refutation or a counter argument against what was actually said. So they have to refute what their emotions tell them that person said to them. Laura Ingram, yes, she said, shut up and dribble to LeBron James. And LeBron James agrees with her. You know how I know that? Because when a real storyline came up, a real global societal issue came up, LeBron said, I have to focus on my team this year. I have to focus on winning a championship. That's what he himself said. He decided that he was going to separate himself or excise himself from the China rioting issues and how relevant it was, according to the NBA's association or relationship with China, their business relationship, and Daryl Morey's commentary. So that's why that narrative came to the forefront. The Most High allowed LeBron James to be put in that situation to show the world how big of a hypocrite he is.
Nobody's not going to continue to keep doing that. You can't just dictate and tell us when to do, how to do it, and where to do it.
No, actually you can. That's called employment, bruh. And beyond that, Stephen A. Smith, contrary to what you're saying, actually has been one of the biggest proponents of black athletes being leaders. A sentiment that I've refuted many times. You guys are not qualified to be leaders. A leader is based on his cognitive function. I'm not saying that an athlete cannot have a high level of cognitive function, but just because you catch a football or bounce a basketball does not mean that you're qualified to lead anybody anywhere. You have to be validated. You have to be cross-referenced for your thought process and your thought pattern. So this stuff about, we're not just always going to keep shutting up and dribbling and not being taken seriously. No. How seriously you as a leader will be based on your mental proficiency.
On the fly with us, dog.
Well, T.O., first of all, it's a couple.
Yeah, dog, I'm ready to revolt. If I don't get another job in the NFL, I'm going to revolt. There has to be a team out there who needs a 5th or 6th wide receiver.
I think that's patently false. And with all due respect, let me explain. Okay. I think that's patently false, and dare I say, relatively ignorant on your part. And I'm going to tell you why.
Okay, I'm just telling you what it seems like.
I got it. I got that part. What I'm saying to you is, you have advisors as well. People who tell you the best way to go about doing things. Everybody that's smart has that. It's
and
not
that's what his advisors did. They told him not to sign the waiver.
Okay, so what I'm saying to you, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if you want a job, you know what the obstacles are, and you have an army of people fighting for you. You don't have to sign the waiver. You don't have to do it. I'm not saying he should have had the workout, period, and that's that. What I'm saying is, you don't move the workout 51 miles away when you know good and damn well it wasn't about your athleticism, it wasn't about your arm strength, it wasn't about whether or not you could make throws. They wanted to talk to you because what they really, really wanted to do was find out whether or not you were going to capitulate to what they wanted. If that's the way, you don't have any trust for them, they don't have any trust for you. We all know all of this, but you still knew this and wanted to play.
Thank you, sir.
Their league. How is it a problem for somebody to say, based on what you say, you want, and knowing who they are, yo, there might be a different course of action. It's not me telling him what to
the
want.
NFL might be
it's
operating
what he wants.
The NFL may be operating illegally here, or at least violating Kaepernick's rights, which is why they want the signature, because they don't be indemnified against the lawsuit.
Guys, let me say one thing. I want to give Terrell the final word. T.O. for being with us, articulating your position. It was strong, it was powerful. Is there anything you want to say before we say goodbye here?
Yes, absolutely. If there are any NFL squads out there who need a 5th, 6th, or 7th wide receiver, a punt returner, a place kick holder, hell, a water boy, call me up. Like I said, I'm in these streets, literally, because I'm damn near homeless. Please call me up. The homeless shelter has a payphone. You can contact them. It's 1-800-I'm broke. Please, I will take any offers, any waivers you want me to sign. I literally will sign away my rights. I'm not like Kaepernick. I'm just mad at the NFL right now because I can't get a job. I'm trying to build up my profile on social media, so I'm more act like I'm woke. Stephen A., sorry I had to use you like this, but it is what it is.
Not at all. I appreciate the healthy dialogue. You know, Stephen A., like as he said, you know, we talk, we're friends. We're still going to be friends. Like I said, we
allegedly
agree to disagree, and that's where we are. And I appreciate you guys, and Max and Molly. I appreciate you guys for having me.
Tio, thank you so much for being here. And let me say this, Stephen A., thank you for never shying away from anything.
That's cool. We're for Stephen A. Smith. Thank you for allowing yourself to have your ethnicity questioned, your manhood questioned by this dude and by these people all over the internet. Stephen A., sometimes you can't just take the high road, but I appreciate you for doing that. It's a peace.